I'm recording this video for Emma, who needs help whitening the backgrounds and generally enhancing the drawn and scanned images that she has here. Emma, this is a really complicated process. I'll take it slow and make it as clear as I can. Make sure you pause frequently and ask any questions that you need. Alright, what I'm going to show you on this photo here should work on your other ones. You'll use each layer to a greater or lesser degree, but the principle, the method should work, I think. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to add 3 layers. First, a blank layer, and that'll be for cloning if needed. Second will be a hue saturation layer, we'll come back to that, and third will be a levels layer. That's where we'll start. Now, this bit's really important. I need you to alt-click on the Auto button in the Levels window, and that will bring up this little window here, and I need you to make sure yours looks exactly the same as mine. It should be on Enhance Per Channel Contrast. The 2 clippings should be 0.01%. Be careful, not 0.1, 0.01%. And you must click the Save as Defaults button. I'll just pause on that there for you. That one, 0.01 for each of these, and Save as Defaults, and then press OK. Now what that will do right away is make the colors a bit weird. That's okay, I just needed to get those defaults set, so you can reset that to nothing. Our goal here is to make the background white, of course. We're going to do that with the white eyedropper, but first we need to find out where to click. So you're going to hold down your Alt key and move the white slider in slowly to see where the white background, or where the background starts to blow out first. Now we've got some sprinkles here. It's sort of in the picture, but you'll find, see down in the bottom left hand corner, that's where the background starts to blow out first. Okay, good. So I've put that slider back out there. I'll grab my white eyedropper, and that's where I'll click, down in that area there. Okay, so that's made the background white there. Now in other parts it's still not quite white. The info panel up here is reading in the 240s. Close to white, but not the perfect white that you need. Now, the next thing we need to do is to see if it's caused any clipping of concern in the photo itself. So again, I'll hold down the Alt key and grab that white slider, start with it all the way out. Now, this one isn't too bad. You'll find your other photos are worse, but inside the photo area, I am seeing a little more clipping than I'd like, and that's what the hue saturation layer is for. We'll just go 5% at a time, so we'll go to the saturation slider and drop it down to -5, then return to the levels layer and check. Okay, so there's less clipping there. That might actually be okay. I could take it down to -10. Yeah, that's really good. Just some specks. Nothing really to worry about. You asked in your thread why I was so pleased that the images were scanned in Adobe RGB rather than sRGB. And this is the reason. It gives us this scope to desaturate gently and bring everything into gamut. We'll talk a bit more about that later. But it's the same reason that photographers shoot RAW. You want to start with all the colors available, and then during editing massage them down to the usable colors. And you've seen me talk about that in class before. Alright, so that's that levels layer done. Now it's time to add a new levels layer. Again, hold down the Alt key, grab the white slider. This time we're going to check what is the last part of the background to clip. So I'm dragging it in slowly. More of the surrounds are clipping, more of the surrounds, and I can see, I should say, I don't care about those corners, it's just the background that's immediately touching the image, and you can see that it's sort of midway down the right hand side, isn't it? That's the last area to clip, so that means that's the darkest area. So put that back out to there and use my white dropper and click excuse me, in that area. That's forcing that to be white. Now as I move my mouse around, lots of 255s in the background. But if I turn that layer off and on, then of course there are some areas that are too blown out now, especially down here in this bottom left corner where we had it perfect to start with. That's okay. We're going to deal with that. The other thing I need you to do here as you turn this layer off and on is maybe use the middle slider just to darken it back to roughly how it was, so there's no real shift of the midtones. On some of your images, you may decide, if it's made everything really glowy, to change the mode of this second levels layer, not the first one, the second one, to luminosity. As we've discussed in class, you'll know what to do there. Alright, so then I'm going to hide that layer by inverting the mask. We'll paint that back on soon. Now, here's the trick. Add a threshold layer and move the middle slider all the way to the right. Now what that's doing is just showing us the bits that are blown out, which, as we know, is this bottom left-hand corner where you first clicked. Everything else is not quite blown out. Reduce the opacity of that layer to about 30%. So that allows us to have these clipping warnings in white and grey, but still be able to see the image behind it. Now we come back to the second levels layer, whose mask is black at the moment, and we're going to choose brush tool, and I think 20% opacity should be okay. It's unusual to use an opacity that high in a lot of cases, but it sure will make this process a bit quicker, and that's good. So what I'm going to do now is gently paint around the edges here until I have this kind of white speckling all around, indicating that it's just clipping to white around these edges. So I'm just going to paint now. You see that? It's just what I'm looking for is some parts you'll have to paint a fair bit until, yeah, there it is, there it is. Now it doesn't need to be fully solid white. Okay, that speckling is all we need. In fact, speckling is better than solid white. Now I'm going to paint right over the top of that hat. Hopefully it won't matter. And around here. Now we're coming down. This side that was the darkest area, as we know, so it will take the most painting. Here it comes. Here comes the speckling. Good. The speckling doesn't have to go all the way to the edge of the image. Just be, nearby is fine. Like that. And coming down here. In there. Okay, along the bottom here, yep, that's down here. The speckling will come easily because it was the closest to white already. This corner's a bit stubborn. Painting. Get that speckling. Love a bit in there if I could. There. A bit more here. That's a bit weak there. That's fine. That's fine. Alright, I just turn off that threshold layer. Okay, I don't know if you can really see the difference. I hope you can, but there's a white halo around there now. Turn the threshold back on now. Above that levels layer, I'm going to add a solid color layer of white. I'm going to invert its mask. And this is the last touch. Back on my brush tool, but at 100% opacity this time, and then paint the rest. Don't go too close. The speckling is fine near the image. No, we're just filling in the white around the rest. Alright, fill that all in there. Now there are these lines here, aren't there? Okay, and let's just have a look now at what I've achieved overall. Okay, so it's all white everywhere except for this. Oh, whoops. No, wait, that's where I need to be. Except for this very faint pencil writing that was here. So that was when still on the solid color white layer. Just get in a bit closer. and paint that out. Also, if there's any specks like that that you don't think add to the image, just paint those out. So I'm being fairly fast and rough here, but you would take a little more care going around. There's a line down there, pencil line. Get rid of that. There's a bit more of it there. Alright, you get the idea. Okay, having a look at the whole edit now. Now, from here, you would go ahead and do your normal levels work. So once you finish with the threshold layer, you can get rid of that. So here now you would start doing your normal levels work as you've learnt in class to make this photo, to give it plenty of pop. But that's what I've showed you here will give you the white background that you need. Now, one more thing. So after you've done everything, your levels, layers, you've got it all looking great. Because it's in Adobe RGB, you will need to soft proof at the end and make sure it's printable. So let's imagine I've done the levels layers here. Then the last thing I would do would be add another hue saturation layer and probably put the saturation at about -50 and then invert that mask to hide it. Oops, and then with my brush tool, but at about 10%. So then you would turn on your soft proofing once you know the CMYK profile that this book is being printed in. And I've just chosen a Fogra there. I'm not sure what you'll be using, and I'm just turning it on and off. And all I can really see, the only real problem, is this elf's hat here. So I've got my 10% brush, and I would just paint on that area gently, and then, yeah, that's desaturated that into a safe zone there. Your other photos may have more bright areas than this one. So yeah, don't forget that soft proofing step at the end, because you don't want to be caught out with any blowouts in the print. So, but I should add, because the file is in Adobe RGB, leave it in Adobe RGB. There's no point converting it to sRGB at any time. Alright, well I hope that's helped. Let me know if you have any problems, and good luck with it.